Welcome to Afghanistan Integration on Monday, August 11th. The United Nations, in its latest report, reveals that severe restrictions on the media and access to information in Afghanistan have completely shut down the space for public debate. UNAMA emphasizes in this report that the suppression of freedom of expression has affected not only the media, but also poetry and cultural gatherings. More details in this report.
The United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, UNAMA, says that the increasing restrictions on access to information for the people of Afghanistan have prevented public discussions on various topics from taking place. In its report titled The State of Human Rights in Afghanistan, April to June 2025, which was published on Sunday, August 10, UNAMA added, alongside other human rights issues, that the policies implemented by the authorities of the ruling administration in the country have suppressed meaningful debate and restricted media content. The report adds that Article 17 of the Taliban government's law on enjoining good and forbidding wrong obliges the officials of this ministry to prevent the publication of content that is contrary to Sharia or contains images of living beings. The United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan stated that the directive which the Taliban government shared with the media on June 29, political analysts participating in discussions are required to adhere to Sharia law and obtain an identification card issued by the Taliban's Ministry of Information and Culture. Additionally, a committee has been established by this ministry to monitor all political content in the media. The latest UNAMA report states that the Taliban's Ministry for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice expanded its monitoring of social networks in May, and during the same month, 5 individuals were arrested in various provinces on charges of posting inappropriate videos. In this report, the United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan said that the environment for private media continues to become more restricted due to various factors, including Afghanistan's economic problems and the suspension of donor funding. UNAMA has stated that the suppression and restriction of media content by the Taliban has led to a decrease in viewership and prevents financial investment and international aid from reaching the media sector. After the publication of this report, in which UNAMA spoke about the increasing restrictions on the Afghan people's access to information, the Taliban government warned that as such actions continue, their regime considers itself obliged to take appropriate measures in response. Osa Ahmad, the head of public relations at the Taliban's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, called this report baseless and said its purpose was to confuse public opinion. On his X page, he has called for the correction of reports by the United Nations Assistance Mission and for the prevention of the spread of incorrect information. He added that previously, officials from this office have been summoned, and it was emphasized to them that they need to reconsider their current reporting methods. Meanwhile, Syed Khalid Tohidi, a media rights activist and former head of the Afghanistan Free Media Support Organization, says that in order to lift restrictions on the media and restore the people's right to access information in Afghanistan, the world needs to sanction the Taliban regime in every possible way.
Access to information in Afghanistan is not just limited, it's completely stopped. There is absolutely no access to information, especially regarding security, political, and financial matters of the Taliban administration. The right to criticize has been taken away from all the people of Afghanistan, whether in the media or outside of it. The content of media programs is completely restricted, and the content that is produced is of no use to anyone inside Afghanistan.
Friends, Seddiqullah Mujahid, the spokesperson for the Taliban government, emphasized in a meeting in Kabul on July 30 that media activities must be carried out based on Islamic values, national interests, and professional principles. Meanwhile, a number of journalist support organizations have also expressed concerns about the intensification of media suppression and the arrest of journalists in the month of July. Reporters Without Borders, RSF, said on August 8 that the arrest of journalists and media workers, as well as the forced confessions taken from them, show that the Taliban have intensified a campaign of intimidation to completely silence the voice of independent journalism in Afghanistan.
Dozens of Afghan drivers with vehicles bearing Pakistani license plates have been stranded at the Torkham border. These drivers say that the Pakistani embassy is not issuing them visas, and they're being forced to sell their vehicles in Pakistan. This situation has seriously affected the dignity of both countries. More details in this report.
A number of Afghan commercial motorbike drivers and their assistants, whose vehicles have Pakistani license plates, say that after unloading their cargo, they have not been allowed to re-enter Pakistan on their return. They told 10 a.m. on Sunday that the Pakistani embassy's refusal to issue visas has caused dozens of empty cargo motorcycles to be stuck for about 3 weeks at the Torkham border crossing on the Afghan side. A driver, who did not want his name mentioned in the report, expressed concern about this issue, saying that the Pakistani embassy does not issue visas to them because the drivers and their assistants are Afghan, but their vehicles have Pakistani license plates.
If the vehicle is Pakistani but the driver is Afghan, they don't give a visa. My vehicle has a Karachi license plate. Getting a visa has become very difficult, and they don't give us visas at all. We've been standing here for 20 nights.
Another driver, who also did not wish for his name to be mentioned in this official report, stated,
Many of us Afghans have Pakistani vehicles, but they don't issue us transit visas. We've been standing here for several nights, and no one cares about us.
They claim that Pakistani officials have told them to sell their vehicles in Pakistan and buy vehicles with Afghan license plates. Officials from the Afghanistan Chamber of Commerce and Investment also confirmed this problem in an interview. Officials from the Khyber Transport Company on the other side of Torkham also said that although they have discussed this issue with Pakistani authorities, they have not reached any conclusions so far. Iqbal Khan, the director of this company, said,
They say it has been agreed that Pakistani drivers will get visas from Afghanistan and Afghan drivers from Pakistan, but the problem now is that 90 to 95% of the drivers are Afghan and their trucks have Pakistani license plates, and Pakistan does not issue them visas. This is a major problem that drivers are currently facing.
Although Hekmatullah Sepid, spokesperson for the Ministry of Transport and Civil Aviation of the Taliban government, did not respond to questions on this matter, several Taliban sources in Torkham said that currently at this crossing, 300 to 400 empty cargo trucks are stranded because the Pakistani embassy is not issuing visas to the drivers and their assistants. These sources also said that they have raised this issue with their government's Ministry of Transport so that it can be discussed at a higher level. Meanwhile, since the beginning of August, having a visa has become mandatory for drivers of commercial vehicles and their assistants in both Pakistan and Afghanistan. Previously, they used to travel back and forth without a visa or passport, based on a TAD document. Although the Pakistani embassy in Afghanistan had announced in a statement on its Facebook page on June 20th of this year that it would issue one-year or multiple-entry visas for Afghan drivers and transporters for a fee of $100. However, some drivers have said that they are facing serious difficulties in obtaining this visa, and have emphasized that travel should once again be allowed based on the TAD document, as it was in the past. It is well known that the issue of transport and transit between Afghanistan and Pakistan has always been accompanied by problems, and this has also negatively affected trade between the two countries.
A report has emerged about the public flogging carried out by the Taliban in various provinces. The Taliban's so-called judiciary has announced that in the past week, 31 people have been subjected to corporal punishment in 6 provinces. However, legal experts call these actions unjust. More details in this report.
A resident of Taghtiyeh says that the Taliban severely flogged 2 of his acquaintances, who are residents of Samkhani district in this province, in public about 2 weeks ago at the beginning of the month of Asad this year, on charges of theft. He, who did not want his name or these individuals' names mentioned in the report due to the matter's sensitivity, said with voice alteration that these 2 have been sentenced to 6 months in prison and are held in Peri prison.
Sir, that's a lie and nonsense. They were flogged. First, they announced in the market for people to gather and said that they had arrested 2 people and would take them to the stadium judge to be flogged as a lesson to others. Before that, Another person had been flogged by mistake and was transferred to Lundi hospital and is now in prison. All of them were young people.
Another person from a remote district of Nangarhar province also claims that 4 months ago, the Taliban government flogged his young brother 39 times in public and sentenced him to 2 years in prison. He, who did not want his name revealed due to the matter's sensitivity, said on condition his voice be altered that his brother, a father of several children, was imprisoned for theft based on claims by individuals without legal oversight or investigation.
One day, we saw him in the city of Rubanchi. I am a teacher and
My brother was flogged and is still in prison. He was a teacher, but some people in the area, for unknown reasons, made up accusations against him and ruined his reputation. When the Taliban came, he had returned home tired from work. I had gone out for work. My parents were at home when the Taliban put my brother on a motorcycle and took him away. A Taliban official filled out several pages of documents, which we didn't understand, and the case reached the prison administration. We went several times and asked, but no one gave us any answers or information. He is still in prison with his fate unknown.
my fate is also unknown.
Abdul Rahim Rashid, spokesperson for the Taliban Supreme Court, avoided answering questions about this matter. However, this court stated in a declaration on Saturday, August 9th, that in the past week, corporal punishment was carried out on 31 criminals and suspects in 6 provinces of Afghanistan. The statement added that physical punishment was implemented in the provinces of Maidan Wardak, Kunduz, Zabul, Kabul, Kapiza, and Baghlan. However, no details were provided about the crimes of these individuals. Additionally, according to statements from the Taliban Supreme Court, in the past month, corporal punishment has been carried out in public on 81 men and women across Afghanistan. At the same time, the spokesperson for the Taliban Supreme Court said in a voice message to the media that in the past 4 months, corporal punishment has been implemented on 30 to 40 criminals and suspects in 27 provinces. It is worth noting that the words criminal and suspect have been used in the statements of the Taliban Supreme Court, as well as by the spokesperson of this court. A number of legal experts and human rights defenders consider the implementation of these punishments to be unjust and arbitrary. Mir Abdu Wahidzadat, the head of the Afghan Lawyers Association in Europe, said that these punishments should be carried out based on the penal code and Sharia principles.
The so-called implementation of punishment in public and openly not only contradicts the laws of Afghanistan, the Afghan Penal Code, the Criminal Procedure Code, and the Civil Code of Afghanistan, it is also in conflict with all accepted norms and international human rights.
The families of many individuals who are executed, detained, tortured, and flogged have said that under the Taliban government, there are neither valid laws for implementing discretionary punishments, nor are the accused allowed to have defense lawyers or the right to defend themselves. Meanwhile, Fahim Farbak, a member of the Human Rights Activists Union, said that from a human rights perspective, such punishments, especially retribution and flogging in public, are a blatant violation of human dignity. The principle of judicial impartiality and the prohibition of cruel and inhuman treatment. The international community should document these actions as serious crimes against humanity. They should pursue the Taliban's case in international, judicial, and legal institutions and exert political and legal pressure for the immediate halt of these unlawful punishments. Although the Taliban government always insists that punishments for criminals are carried out according to Islamic Sharia, legal experts, human rights defenders, and international organizations argue that these are unjust, pointing out that Afghanistan lacks a constitutional framework and an independent and fair judicial system overseen by third-party institutions.
Afghan returnees who have recently come back from Iran and Pakistan are facing a severe housing crisis in Kabul. Rents have skyrocketed and many of these families have been forced to live in poor conditions. More details in this report.
After the forced return of more than 2 million migrants, many of them are searching for suitable shelter in Kabul, but rent prices have skyrocketed. Mohammed Mohsen Zarab is one of them. He has come to Kabul with the bare minimum in hopes that in the city of 8 million, he can find opportunities for work and a better life. In a country where half the population lives below the poverty line, Zarab says,
that they search around here. That means today, we left there at 1418. What is today's date? Is it the 4th or 5th month? The 6th? I haven't looked for a house until now. Every step is met with obstacles. I haven't been able to find a house at all.
Officials at real estate agencies in Kabul tell AFP that with the arrival of returnees, rent prices have increased to an unprecedented level. Nabil Qureshi, the manager of a real estate agency, says,
These days, as you know, migrants have returned from Pakistan and Iran, and now it's very hard to find a house. Landlords have raised the rent a lot. For example, if a year or a year and a half ago a single-room house cost about 10,000, now another 10,000 has been added, making it 20,000.
2 years ago, the number of landlords coming to Qureshi's office to rent out their houses was higher than the demand, but now the demand for shelter has increased compared to before. Meanwhile, Kabul municipality denies any housing crisis and says that their urban development plans include building new roads and demolishing some houses. These are being implemented to better manage housing problems. Nematullah Barazani, spokesperson for Kabul municipality, told AFP that 75% of the city was built without a plan and they don't want this to happen again. But rebuilding their lives is proving to be incredibly difficult for some of these individuals who have lived for many years in either Iran or Pakistan and have now returned home completely empty-handed, like Zara Hashemi, for instance, one of the many returnees from Iran who has been tragically forced to live in a cramped basement room.
Houses were very expensive. You couldn't find anything for less than $4,500 to $5,000, so we're living in this basement, just making do for now. There's no proper electricity or anything. Life is really hard for us. Paying rent is a real struggle. The landlord has called 2 or 3 times. For more times, he even came to our door. My husband works at this mine. He earns 80 rupees a day. He doesn't work much. Yesterday too, he made 80 rupees. Today he went again, and so far he's earned 80 rupees. He doesn't get much more than that.
The housing shortage crisis has made things difficult not only for migrants returning from Iran and Pakistan, but also for people who have always lived in Afghanistan. Mastana Sharajabi, a resident of Kabul, says,
Before this, I lived in a 3-room house that cost about $3,500 in rent. Now I live in a 2-room house. In these past 2.5 years, the rent has gone up to $5,000.
Meanwhile, United Nations statistics show that more than 2 million Afghans have been forcibly returned from Iran and Pakistan since the beginning of this year, people who are in need of work and shelter.
That concludes the news for today. We hope you found it informative and insightful. Thank you for tuning in.